There's a voice in your mind, a voice that never stops talking. It speaks when you wake up. It speaks before you sleep. It speaks when you fail. It speaks when you look in the mirror. And slowly, without realizing it, you started believing that voice is you. You are not good enough. You are falling behind. People are judging you. You will never change. You always ruin everything. But what if Buddha was right? What if the greatest prison in human history was never made of iron bars, but of thoughts? And what if the person suffering inside your mind right now is not the real you? Listen carefully, because this realization has the power to completely transform your life. Thousands of years ago, Buddha taught something so powerful, so shocking, that most people still do not understand it today. He taught that the mind creates suffering not because of reality, but because we become attached to thoughts. Think about that. A single thought can destroy your peace. A memory can ruin your entire day. An imaginary future can fill your body with anxiety. Nothing physically happened, yet your heart races, your chest tightens, your mood changes. Why? Because the mind convinced you that thoughts are reality. And this is where most people lose themselves. They become servants to every thought that appears in the mind. If anger appears, they become anger. If fear appears, they become fear. If insecurity appears, they become insecurity. But Buddha said something radically different. He taught, the mind is everything. What you think, you become. Most people misunderstand this quote. They think it means positive thinking alone creates a better life. No, the deeper meaning is this. If you unconsciously identify with every thought, your thoughts will control your identity. And once your identity is controlled, your life follows. That is why millions of people feel trapped inside invisible mental cages. Not because they are weak, not because life is impossible, but because they never learn how to observe the mind without becoming the mind. Right now, pause for 1 second. Notice the thoughts appearing in your head. Maybe you are thinking about your future. Maybe you are remembering someone who hurt you. Maybe you are worried about money, success, relationships, or time running out. Now ask yourself this. If you can observe the thought, then who is the observer? This question changes everything, because the observer is the real you, not the fear, not the anxiety, not the overthinking, not the self-doubt. Those are temporary mental events, clouds passing through the sky. But people spend their entire lives worshiping clouds, while forgetting they're the sky itself. And this is exactly why modern society feels mentally exhausted. People are drowning in stimulation, notifications, comparison, pressure, bad news, social media, endless opinions. The human mind was never designed to absorb this much noise every single day. So what happens? People lose connection with themselves. They become addicted to distraction because silence feels uncomfortable. Why? Because when silence appears, unresolved thoughts appear too. And many people are terrified of being alone with their own minds. That is why some people cannot sit quietly for even 5 minutes. They immediately grab their phone, turn on music, open social media, watch another video, anything to escape themselves. But Buddha never taught escape. He taught awareness. Because healing begins the moment you stop running. Listen carefully to this truth. Your thoughts are not always telling the truth. Read that again. Just because your mind says something does not make it real. The mind is conditioned by fear, memory, trauma, ego, insecurity, and survival instincts. Sometimes your mind speaks from pain, not wisdom. Yet most people obey every thought automatically. Imagine believing every advertisement you ever saw. Sounds ridiculous, right? But people believe every negative thought in their head, without question. I'm a failure. No one cares about me. I'll never succeed. I'm too late. I'm broken. These thoughts repeat so often that they start feeling true. But repetition does not create truth. It creates conditioning. And conditioning can be broken. This is where true mental freedom begins. Not when life becomes perfect. Not when you become rich. Not when everyone approves of you. Freedom begins when thoughts stop controlling your inner state. Because a peaceful mind is more valuable than external success without peace. Look at modern culture. People chase status, money, validation, attention. Yet depression, anxiety, loneliness, and emotional emptiness continue growing. Why? Because external achievement cannot heal internal chaos. Buddha understood this centuries ago. He taught that attachment creates suffering, and one of the deepest attachments humans have is attachment to mental identity. People cling to stories about themselves. I'm not confident. I'm unlucky. I'm too emotional. I'm always anxious. And after repeating these stories long enough, they become self-fulfilling prisons. But your identity is not fixed. You are not chained to your past mind. Every moment offers a new choice: awareness or unconsciousness, peace or mental slavery, observation or identification. This is why meditation became such a powerful practice in Buddhist teachings. Not because meditation magically removes problems, but because meditation teaches you to witness thoughts without drowning in them. At first, this feels impossible. The mind jumps everywhere: past, future, regret, fantasy, fear. But slowly, something incredible happens. You begin noticing space between you and your thoughts. And inside that space, peace appears. Not fake happiness, not forced positivity, real peace. The kind of peace that remains even during difficult moments. Because now you understand. Thoughts come and go. Emotions come and go. Pain comes and goes. But awareness remains. This is a powerful truth most people never discover. You do not have to believe every thought you think. That single realization can save someone's life. Imagine how many people destroy themselves emotionally because of temporary thoughts. A bad day becomes, my life is ruined. A rejection becomes, I'm worthless. A mistake becomes, I'll never recover. The mind exaggerates suffering constantly. And the ego loves drama because drama strengthens identity. But Buddha's teachings cut directly through illusion. He taught people to see reality clearly, not through fear, not through ego, not through emotional chaos, but through awareness. Awareness is power. Because when you become aware of the mind loses its control over you. And suddenly, the insult hurts less. The fear weakens. The anxiety softens. The overthinking slows down. Not because life changed overnight, but because you stop feeding mental noise with unconscious belief. This is why inner mastery is more powerful than outer control. You cannot control everything in life. People will misunderstand you. Some relationships will end. Unexpected pain will come. Life will challenge you. But if you master your inner world, you become emotionally unshakable. That is true strength, not aggression, not ego, not pretending to be fearless. True strength is remaining calm while chaos tries to enter your mind. And that level of peace terrifies the modern world. Because a peaceful person cannot easily be manipulated. A person who controls their mind becomes dangerous to systems built on fear, insecurity, comparison, and emotional addiction. That is why inner awareness feels revolutionary. Because once you wake up mentally, you stop living like a program machine. You begin questioning everything. Why am I constantly chasing approval? Why do I fear being alone? Why do I compare myself to everyone? Why do I believe every negative thought? And slowly your consciousness expands. You start realizing the mind is a tool, not your master. But there's another layer to this truth. A deeper truth Buddha wanted humanity to understand. A truth so powerful that once you truly understand it, your relationship with suffering will never be the same again. Most people think their biggest enemies are outside of them. Difficult people, money problems, stress, failure, rejection. But Buddha taught that the real battle begins within. Because two people can experience the exact same situation and suffer completely differently. One person loses a job and collapses mentally. Another loses a job and becomes stronger. One person faces criticism and breaks emotionally. Another hears criticism and stays calm. Why? Because suffering is not created only by events. It is amplified by the mind's reaction to those events. This is one of Buddha's most life-changing truths. Pain is part of life, but psychological suffering is often created by unconscious attachment. Think carefully about your own life. How much pain came from reality? And how much came from overthinking reality? How many nights did you suffer because of scenarios that never happened? How many times did your mind replay old memories until they became emotional torture? How many opportunities did fear steal from your life? This is a hidden war most humans fight every single day. And the scary part is, many people never realize they are trapped inside mental patterns. They think their thoughts are their personality, but thoughts are habits, and habits can be changed. The human brain is incredibly powerful. Whatever you repeat consistently grows stronger. Fear repeated becomes anxiety. Anger repeated becomes bitterness. Self-doubt repeated becomes insecurity. But awareness repeated becomes wisdom. This is why Buddha emphasized mindfulness so deeply. Mindfulness is not just sitting quietly with your eyes closed. True mindfulness means becoming conscious of what controls your inner world. Most people live unconsciously. They wake up stressed, check their phone immediately, compare themselves to strangers online, rush through life, react emotionally to everything, overthink at night, repeat the cycle again tomorrow. Years pass like this, and eventually people become emotionally exhausted without understanding why. Because unconscious living drains the soul. Modern society constantly pulls attention outward. Buy this, become this, look like this, prove yourself, compete harder, be more successful, and slowly, people lose connection with inner peace. They become addicted to achievement because silence feels empty. But Buddha warned humanity about this trap long ago. He understood that endless craving creates endless suffering. The ego always wants more validation, more attention, more certainty, more control. But the ego can never be fully satisfied. That is why even successful people often feel empty inside, because external success cannot fix internal disconnection. A person can have fame and still hate themselves, money and still feel anxious, power and still feel lonely. Why? Because peace is an inside job, and this is where the modern world becomes dangerous. People are taught how to make money, but not how to master mind. They learn how to impress others, but not how to understand themselves. So they become mentally fragile. A single rejection destroys them. A single failure defines them. A single negative comment ruins their day, because their emotional state depends entirely on external conditions. But Buddha's teachings offer another path, a path of inner stability, a path where your peace no longer depends on the world behaving perfectly. This does not mean becoming emotionless. It means becoming aware enough to avoid drowning in emotions. There is a massive difference. Buddhist wisdom never teaches suppression. It teaches observation. Suppressed emotions become poison. Observed emotions become understanding. This is why running from pain never truly works. Distraction only delays suffering. Eventually, the mind demands attention. That is why some people stay busy every second of the day, because silence forces them to confront themselves. But healing begins when you stop escaping. Imagine sitting quietly and observing your thoughts without judgment. At first, it feels uncomfortable. Your mind becomes loud. Random memories appear. Fear appears. Regret appears. Embarrassing moments appear. Anxiety appears. Most people panic here. They think meditation is failing. But actually, awareness is finally beginning. For the first time, you are seeing the chaos that was already controlling you unconsciously. And this realization is powerful, because you cannot heal what you refuse to see. Buddha understood that awareness itself transforms a mind. The moment you observe anger consciously, anger weakens. The moment you observe fear consciously, fear loses some control. Why? Because unconscious emotions survive through identification. The ego says, I am angry, I am anxious, I am broken. But awareness changes the language. Now you say, anger is present, fear is present, sadness is present. Can you feel the difference? One creates identity. The other creates observation. And observation creates freedom. This is why mental strength is not about pretending to be positive all the time. Real mental strength means staying conscious during emotional storms. Anyone can feel peaceful when life is easy. But can you remain centered when life becomes painful? That is the real test of inner growth. Buddha never promised a life without difficulty. He promised a path beyond unnecessary suffering. And there is a huge difference. A wise person still experiences pain, but they no longer multiply pain through unconscious thinking. Most suffering comes from resistance. Humans constantly argue with reality. This should not have happened. They should not have left. My life should be different. But reality does not care about mental resistance. The more you fight reality internally, the more suffering grows. Acceptance does not mean weakness. Acceptance means seeing clearly. It means understanding. This moment already exists. Fighting it mentally will not erase it. And strangely, acceptance creates power. Because energy trapped in resistance becomes available for transformation. This is why calm people are powerful. Not because they never feel pain, but because they are no longer controlled by emotional chaos. Look at water. Water is soft, yet can break stone over time. Calmness works the same way. The modern world glorifies constant intensity. More hustle, more noise, more outrage, more stimulation. But deep wisdom is quiet. That is why many people misunderstand peaceful individuals. They think calmness is weakness. In reality, calmness often requires enormous inner discipline. Anyone can react impulsively. Few people can remain conscious under pressure. And this is where true freedom begins. Not when life becomes easier, but when your mind becomes stronger than circumstances. A person who masters the mind becomes difficult to break. Insults lose power. Fear loses control. External validation loses importance. Because now your identity is no longer built on temporary mental stories. You realize something extraordinary. Thoughts are visitors. Some are useful. Some are destructive. Some are irrational. But none of them define your deepest self. This understanding changes relationships too. Because once you stop identifying with every emotion, you stop reacting unconsciously to others. You become less defensive, less impulsive, less emotionally manipulated. And suddenly life becomes lighter, not perfect, but lighter because the mental weight begins disappearing. Now listen carefully. One of the biggest lies modern culture teaches is this. You must always think positively. Buddha's wisdom is deeper than forced positivity. He did not teach people to deny darkness. He taught them to understand it. Toxic positivity ignores suffering. Awareness transforms suffering. That is why genuine inner peace feels authentic. It is not fake happiness. It is emotional clarity. A peaceful person still feels sadness sometimes, still feels grief, still feels pain, but they no longer become consumed by those states. They understand impermanence. Everything changes. Every emotion passes. Every storm ends. Every mental state moves like weather. And this realization alone can save people from hopelessness, because no feeling lasts forever, not even your darkest moment. But the ego wants permanence. It says, this pain will never end. You will always feel this way. Nothing will change. The ego speaks in absolutes. Wisdom speaks in awareness. And awareness sees truth clearly. Everything is temporary. This moment, this fear, this sadness, this chapter of your life, everything changes. That is why attachment creates suffering. Humans try desperately to hold on to things that are constantly changing. People, youth, status, identity, pleasure, control. But life itself is movement, and fighting that truth creates exhaustion. Buddha taught that peace comes not from controlling life, but from understanding life deeply. There is a version of you living inside your mind right now. A character, a mental identity, a story built from memories, fears, labels, pain, success, failure, and other people's opinions. And most people spend their entire lives protecting this false version of themselves. This is the final illusion Buddha wanted humanity to awaken from, the illusion of the ego. Now listen carefully. The ego is not evil. It is simply the mental image you created about who you think you are. I am successful. I am a failure. I am attractive. I am not enough. I am smarter than others. I am always anxious. The ego survives through identity. It constantly asks, how do people see me? Am I winning? Am I respected? Do I matter more than others? Am I falling behind? And because the ego depends on external validation, it can never truly rest. That is why so many people feel mentally exhausted today. They are performing a character every day, pretending to be okay, pretending to be confident, pretending to have everything figured out. Meanwhile, deep inside, they feel disconnected from themselves. Buddha saw this suffering clearly. He understood that humans become trapped the moment they confuse their awareness with their mental identity. And this confusion creates endless fear, because if your identity is built on temporary things, you will constantly fear losing them. If your identity depends on money, you fear failure. If it depends on beauty, you fear aging. If it depends on approval, you fear rejection. If it depends on success, you fear losing status. This is why the ego lives in constant tension. It always needs protection, but awareness needs nothing. Awareness simply observes. This is the deeper meaning behind inner peace. Peace is not becoming someone new. Peace is remembering who you were before the world filled your mind with noise, before comparison poisoned your confidence, before fear shaped your choices, before society convinced you your worth depended on achievement. Think about children. A child laughs freely, feels emotions naturally, lives in the present moment. But over time, conditioning begins. Be realistic. Do not fail. Do not look weak. People are judging you. You must prove yourself. And slowly the mind becomes imprisoned by psychological pressure. This is why adults often lose their natural joy. Not because life destroyed them completely, but because they became separated from presence. Presence is power. Because the present moment is the only place life actually exists. The past exists as memory. The future exists as imagination. Yet most humans mentally live everywhere except now. They replay old mistakes. They fear future disasters. They overanalyze conversations. They imagine rejection before taking action. And meanwhile, life quietly passes by. This is one of the saddest truths about modern humanity. People are physically alive, but mentally absent. They miss sunsets while staring at screens, miss conversations while overthinking, miss opportunities while fearing failure. Their minds are so noisy that they cannot experience reality clearly anymore. But Buddha's teachings bring people back to the present, back to awareness, back to clarity, back to reality itself. And this changes everything, because when you fully enter the present moment, many psychological problems immediately weaken. Anxiety lives in the future. Shame lives in the past. Ego lives in comparison. But peace lives here. Now, this moment. Take a deep breath. Right now, in this exact moment. Are you safe? Not tomorrow. Not next year. Right now. For many people, the answer is yes. Yet the mind keeps generating suffering anyway. That is why mastering attention is one of the greatest skills a human can develop. Where attention goes, energy flows. If you constantly feed fear, fear grows. If you constantly feed anger, anger grows. If you constantly feed insecurity, insecurity grows. But if you feed awareness, your consciousness expands. And once consciousness expands, life begins changing from the inside out. You stop reacting to everything emotionally. You stop chasing approval constantly. You stop needing everyone to understand you, because your peace no longer depends on external noise. This is true liberation, not escaping life, not isolating yourself from the world, but living in the world without becoming psychologically controlled by it. That is real freedom. A free mind cannot be manipulated easily, and modern systems fear conscious people, because conscious people think independently. They question toxic standards. They stop blindly following crowds. They stop measuring worth through social comparison. Most importantly, they stop abandoning themselves. That is the real tragedy of modern life. People abandon themselves to fit into a world that is also deeply lost. But Buddha's wisdom calls you back home to yourself, not the fake self built by fear, the deeper self beneath the noise, the observer, the awareness, the The silent presence watching every thought come and go. That is why silence feels so powerful. Because in silence, the false self weakens. The endless mental performance slows down. And for the first time in a long time, you can hear your real self again. This is why many people fear silence. Because silence exposes truth. It reveals addictions, emotional wounds, loneliness, unresolved pain. But it also reveals wisdom, strength, clarity, compassion, inner peace. And eventually you realize something life-changing. You spent years fighting yourself unnecessarily. You believed every negative thought. You carried emotional pain as identity. You treated temporary feelings like permanent truth. But none of that was your deepest self. You were simply unconscious of the mind's illusions. And awareness breaks illusion. This is the awakening Buddha spoke about. Not becoming superhuman, becoming conscious. Seeing reality clearly without distortion from fear and ego. The awakened person still experiences life fully. They still love, still work, still feel emotions, still face challenges. But now they move through life with inner stability, like a mountain during a storm. The storm may shake the surface, but the mountain remains grounded. That is the energy of a conscious mind. Calm, present, aware, unshaken. And the beautiful truth is this. Anyone can begin this journey. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need years of spiritual training. You do not need to escape society. You simply need awareness. The next time fear appears, observe it. The next time anger appears, observe it. The next time overthinking begins, pause and breathe. Remind yourself, this is a thought, not my identity. That single practice can slowly transform your entire life, because the moment you stop identifying with every thought, the mind loses its power to control you, and suddenly you sleep better. You react less emotionally. You feel lighter internally. You experience more peace. You stop fighting yourself constantly. This is not weakness. This is mastery. The world teaches people to conquer others. Buddha taught people to conquer themselves. And self-mastery is the highest form of power. So the next time your mind tells you, you are not enough, you are broken, you will never change, pause, breathe, and remember this powerful truth. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. If this message touched your soul and helped you see life differently, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and become part of our growing journey here at Wisdom Hub Buddha. Because in a world full of noise, inner peace is a superpower, and your awakening may only be beginning.